Hey everybody, this is Rich with Fast Reviews and I'm super excited here. We've got the 14-inch MacBook Pro M2 model, and this is the M2 Pro version. We'll be reviewing this and comparing this to the MacBook number 13. We're starting in 3, 2, 1. This is the MacBook Pro 14-inch M2. This is a lot more powerful computer. It is not the M2 Max, a 12-core CPU with the M2 Pro, and it has a 1TB SSD hard drive. Gonna be the standard, similar to the M1. It has a 14.2-inch Liquid Retina XDR display. It has a resolution of 3024 by 1964, and it also has a large 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, as well as 1600 nits of brightness. That means you're going to be able to see content, including HDR content, from multiple angles. The insides have changed. The outsides still have some of those similar features. Front-facing camera, which is 1080p, and then you've got the notch, of course. You don't have touchscreen. That's still not in the Apple universe, but you've got some extra added features here. So let's dive into it. Let's get unboxing it first. Again, you're paying for the extra upgrades on the GPU. Which is kind of hard to understand. The base model of the 14-inch is the 10-core. This guy has the 12-core CPU and 19-core GPU. So if you're a gamer, this is pretty good specs for you. It has the XDR display with what Apple's calling the ProMotion technology. You've got 3 Thunderbolt 4 USB-C ports. You've got an HDMI port. Again, ports are back in the 14-inch, but they're not back on the 13-inch. You've got an SD-XC slot, and you've got a MagSafe 3 port as opposed to the USB-C that you've seen in the other models, including the MacBook Air. It also has Wi-Fi 6E. This is something that's the newer offering of the Wi-Fi 6 family, and it has Bluetooth 5.3. It has a high-fidelity 6-speaker system, as well as a 1080p FaceTime HD camera versus the 720p in the older generations. Now, it does come pre-installed with macOS. Here's the specs. It's basically 3.5 pounds, 12.3 by 8.71 inches. Now it does come with a 96-watt USB-C power adapter. Apple makes multiple versions of that adapter, so make sure you have the right one that will be able to run this guy. All right, here we go. And by the way, let's just see here. Yeah, this one has 16 gigabytes of unified memory. The MacBook 13 starts at 8. So this is kind of like the internal RAM memory as opposed to the storage memory. There is an option to go 32, but if you want to go 64, you have to go with the M2 Max model. So just keep that in mind. The M2 Max model is significantly more pricier. Now this is not the M2 Max, as I said, this is the M2 Pro. Now the 1TB storage is going to cost you an extra $200 versus the default with the MacBook 13, which is the 256 gigabytes. Now if you like ports, again, this is the one that you're going to want to get, especially because you'll be able to find these guys under $2,000 now. Now the FaceTime camera is only adequate, so you could actually, they don't actually have anything better resolution. FaceTime 1080p HD camera. We've got MagSafe 3, and then this simply magnets on, and it uses a USB-C for the charger. All right, let's see what's inside here. Okay, it comes with a black sticker now, as opposed to the white one, which. All right, and here you go. You've got this brick. This is a 96-watt USB-C power adapter. The USB-C is on this side here, and that is pretty much it. Let's go ahead and get this powered up here. As you can see here, the form factor is actually very similar to the MacBook 13, except for the ports, of course. So you're talking about almost a couple centimeters, maybe 2 centimeters of difference in width in the size, the dimension size. So it's not too bad. The thickness is actually just a couple millimeters difference here. You can see that. You've got the front notch here, and you've got kind of more of a tapered edge as opposed to a MacBook Air style rounding down type of edge. Okay, let's see the keyboard size is the same. I couldn't figure that out. This MacBook 13 has the touch bar. So this has the touch bar, which is an adaptable touch bar feature. This is going away, of course, depending on what Apple releases next. So again, people didn't really use it, and we're back to function keys here. So function keys are going to be able to use your FN buttons. Now, in terms of the angle is still about the same, so you can go back a couple angles. And the Touch ID key right here, which is this little guy, is actually quite larger. It'll actually fit your finger. So it's this guy right here. and that'll fit the finger right here perfectly. All right, so keyboard has a little bit more depth of travel from a practical perspective, and the touchpad looks exactly the same. Now it has a 6-speaker system here, so let me just get this guy online. Some audio additional support. Obviously you're not going to have a true surround system, but the technology is pretty good. I always like that the MacBooks, when you're doing a presentation, are actually quite loud compared to a Windows PC. Now you've got a display of 3024 by 1964. That's almost HD, almost 4K actually, and it's 254 pixels per inch. So it's got really good resolution density here. Okay, weight-wise, of course, it does weigh more because of the larger display, but it also has a slightly less battery life because it's powering a lot more components. So instead of 20 hours with the MacBook 13, you're going to get roughly about 18 hours. Now this is not an OLED display, but this is a really good mini LED display. So you can adjust the backlit brightness, and you can actually take it down to 0 using the FN keys. So if you want to go to bed and not have your monitor stare at you, then that works. Now ProMotion is Apple's fancy term for 120 Hz refresh rate. So you're going to get a lot smoother experience when you're using this machine. But at the same time, you can actually downgrade to 60 Hz. So it has some variable refresh rate settings if you want to, and of course you can drive that all with software. Now you can edit on the MacBook Pro 14. It's actually made for editing because you'll be able to run ProRes, ProRes RAW, Final Cut, take care of large files because you got a 1 terabyte. So this is a pretty good setup here if you're looking at editing by a Mac, but of course it's a lot more expensive than the PC equivalent. Now you can output 8K 60 Hz or 4K 240 Hz. So performance wise, this one actually gets a single score of 2660 and a multi-core score on Geekbench of 12,000. So of course you're comparing the M2 chips to the Intel i7 chips, and that's just a different animal. Now the SSD that's built in is actually the NAND module. So this is basically flash memory that's stored as 1 terabyte, similar to what you find on the PlayStation. The base size 512 has 2 NAND chips, and the problem with that is that it does decrease this read and write speed. But you're not gonna notice that. Obviously, it's a lot superior to the disk-based storage systems. Now here is the ports. The ports are a full-size SD card slot, which is great because my camera does use a full-size SD card, and I have an HDMI 2.1 port, which again can actually drive 8K 60 Hz or 4K 240 Hz. This is pretty unheard of because whenever you use an adapter, you're not going to get that higher speed. You know, it still has bezels, but it also has a notch. So can you live with it? Probably. The phone technology, of course, nowadays is that sometimes you can hide the front-facing camera behind the display. So you're going to probably get better resolution on your iPhone camera. It does have some software tools to update. With travel with the keyboard, in my opinion, is slightly better than the MacBook 13. It's better by a couple millimeters. You're not going to really notice it. Macs are not really taken quite seriously as a gaming machine, but with the 12-core GPU, you'll be able to get some games going and have decent frame rate resolution. So the conclusion is, if you try to pick something up like this, it's not a bad value, especially with the new ones coming out. You'll be able to get something in the range of between $1,500 to $2,000, depending on your configuration. And this guy would have been over $2,000 if you bought it in first quarter of this year. Now, if you want to go with something that's a tiny bit lighter, then the MacBook 13 is still good for you. You've got a headphone jack, you've got the 2 USB-Cs, one of which is for charging. So you're going to need to bring a dongle, which is okay, it's just how it is. But at the same time, you've got a lot better battery life. So conclusion is that if you're going to just watch movies and do a little bit of work on your Mac, then the 13-inch is going to be perfect for you because you still are able to use the Apple software and the Apple gestures to have productivity. If you're going to do hardcore editing or gaming, then the MacBook 14, with its versatile HDMI port that's outputting a crazy 240 Hz refresh rate, that's something that you're going to want to look at. And again, this technology right here, this is something you would have to pay premium for years ago to be able to connect and get that highest speed. So technology has advanced. Anyway, that's going to be it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the future.